we're going to attempt to change the engine oil on my motorcycle. So to get started, we have to first start the bike up and let the engine heat up so that the oil circulates. So that's what we're going to do. Notice the irregular idle. That's because of the amount of ethanol that they keep adding in fuel nowadays. I think it's almost up to 20% now. So I brought the idle down to about 1000 RPM. I'm going to let it go for a while more so that the oil can circulate well. Still idling. Like I said, we want the oil to circulate really well so that when you open up the drain bolts, the oil comes out freely. Still going. I think we can shut it off now. Yeah, I think we can shut it off and we can get started. Okay, so this is a pre-unit construction engine. I'm sure most of you would know that, but for the ones who don't, this is how Royal Enfield used to make engines in the early 2000s. Right, so this came exactly after the cast iron, and their whole aim was to make an engine that is as close to the cast iron as possible, however increasing the performance and things like that. So how it works is, so you have your engine, you have your gearbox, and on the other side you have your clutch. So these are three separate units that are bolted on together. Unlike the modern engines from all manufacturers now, they come as a single unit. That's why the next gen was called UCE, Unit Construction Engine, right? Put together into one unit. Okay, so let's get started. Now while I'm doing this, I'm also going to take the timing case off. The timing cover, I'm going to take it off, and I want to check the cam gears. And I also want to check the push rods. I want to check if they are in spec or not. Okay, so for this section, which is the engine, what you would need is a 19 ring spanner. Break loose the drain bolts on the bottom, right? And for the oil filter, what you would need is a 13 mm ring spanner. This you would need to break off right here to open up the oil filter and change it. So let me change the camera angle and let's see how this goes. Okay, what you would also need is a nice drain pan, which I'm going to place underneath. So make sure to keep your surroundings clean, work neat and clean, don't mess the place up. What oil am I using? I'm using Motul, and it might seem strange, but it's 20 weight 40. Right, so the motorcycle is now 18 years old. When I bought it brand new, that's what the manufacturer recommended, right? 20 weight 40. And if I'm not mistaken, the API was SG or SF, but yeah, we'll get to that. Okay, so 20 weight 40, but after a while I switched over to 20 W50 and it worked pretty well, but I just wanted to experiment putting in the factory recommended oil grade to see if there's any difference in performance. I got this on Amazon at a pretty decent price. You can find them on Amazon and on other online platforms as well. And so what the manufacturer recommends is JSOMA, right? But now that standard has been outdated. Now we have JSOMA2, And when you read the service manual, it's pretty clear. It says JSO 903, which I'm sure you can read here. It says 903, and the API standard has changed as well. But if you read closely on the package, it says it's backwards compatible with previous API service categories. So this oil is safe to use in an old engine, right? The reason why you need JSO MA or MA2 is because this motorcycle uses wet clutch. So if you don't have that, then you'll have a lot of clutch slippage and things like that. You're safe enough to not use JSO MA2 in the, since this is a pre-unit construction and there's 3 different oils for each unit. You're good enough to use a non-JSO oil here. However, when it comes to the clutch, it's better that you use JSO MA or JSO MA2. Okay, and so 2040 is what the manufacturer recommends, but I've read on online forums that people use automatic transmission fluid, 10W40, 10W30. I've read on a couple of Hitchcock's articles as well that 10W30 works well. I've seen other people use 10W30, but this is what the manufacturer recommends. I want to try this and see how it goes. Right, so let's get started. Let me break loose the drain bolts and we'll see how it goes. So just a word of caution, guys. The engine would be warm or would even be hot. So when you're working on it, be careful. I'm going to first open up the tappet cover. As you can see, this is not a standard AVL LB tappet cover. I made some modifications on the engine. I'll talk about that in another video. Let me open this up and then we can go step by step. I'm going to use a cloth to open it because it's pretty hot. And if you can see, the gasket that I've used is also not a standard AVL LB350 gasket. Oh, packing material, whatever you want to call it. So when you're working on the oil filter section, you have to keep in mind that it is spring loaded. Okay, again, be careful. The exhaust pipe would be pretty hot. Okay, so this is spring loaded. What I like to do is I kind of like to open it up a few turns, and then I would like to get at it with a screwdriver. Be careful, this is aluminium. Ideally you would be better off using a wooden mallet, but I don't. I'm just a hobby mechanic, right? Can you see it broke loose? Right? Now what you would need to do is you would need to hold it down so that it doesn't fly off. So I think what has happened is the previous mechanic that worked on the motorcycle has over tightened this nut, and so I think it's actually attached to the stud inside. I'll have to see how I can work that out. Let me see. Be careful again. We don't want this to go flying. Let me get at it again a little bit. There you go. Did you hear that? The spring load broke loose. Okay, now it's safe to take it off. And it is hot. I am kind of burning my fingers, but that's how it is. There you go. So like I said, the mechanic has been too harsh with the tightening, and so this should be ideally inside the timing case, but I'll see how I can break that loose. I'm just going to put it in there for the time being. I am also at this time going to open the timing case up. Let me break these loose and then we can open this up as well. Again, like I said, make sure not to make a mess when you're working. It is inevitable, but try your best. The timing case comes with 10 Allen screws. There are 4 screws that are longer than the others, so you have to make sure that you don't change the position of these, because if you do, you'll then strip the threads in the crankcase, and then you'll have to run to a lathe and get it fixed. So these engines are pretty old, right? And there's so many mechanics that have worked on them, so be careful, don't over tighten anything. And we don't use torque spec because, again, there's so many people that have worked on it and we don't know how much they've tightened it, and we don't want to strip the threads. Ideally you should use a torque wrench, but that's how it is. Yeah, tools will fall down. That's how this game works. Okay, so the bottom 3 here are long ones. So what I like to do is I like to keep them in the order that I've taken them out. Right, so there we go, 3. And the next long one is right here on top. So these are the longer ones. As you can see, the oil is draining away. I have not broken the drain bolts as yet. Okay. Okay, so these are the shorter ones. These are the 6 short ones. This is the reason why we why we idle the engine first. As you can see, the oil is flowing out very nicely. Okay, I'm going to. So how you would remove the oil filter is you would have a magnetic rod, and then that's how you would remove it. But since the spindle itself has come out, so this is the piece that goes on top of the oil filter, right? And we have an O-ring, and then we have the oil filter itself. The oil filter itself. Okay, you will notice that once I open this out, the oil is going to pour out pretty well. Let me change the camera angle and then we'll continue. Okay, I'm going to open the timing case up. Let's see how it goes from there. So when you open the timing case, please make sure that the shims don't fall out. Install them back onto the spindle. So at this point, just wipe it down so that you don't spill most of the oil. Set it aside. Okay, let's break loose the drain bolts. So careful again, you will burn your hands. So we have 3. This is a sump bolt. We have another sump bolt. Where is it? Just a second. I'm gonna have to look under. Yeah, here we go. Here's the next one. Just breaking them loose. Okay. This one has a filter on it, which I will show you when I open it up. You won't expect much oil to come out from here. There we go. That's the filter. I don't know if you can see that clearly. See, ideally you wouldn't need to open the timing case up, but since I'm working on the engine after a very long time, I decided, okay, let me open this up. Let's see how it goes. Let me open the sump bolt as well. Most of the oil will drain out from here, as you can see, so be patient. So I'm having a little trouble with this one. It seems to be tightening up as I'm loosening it. So like I said, this is an old motorcycle. I don't know if I should take the risk and open it. And then if I do, if I strip the threads, then I'm jacked. So I'm just wondering what I should do with that one. Okay, so I have all the 3 drain bolts off. This one, the middle one, this one was giving me a little trouble. It seemed to be misaligned, but thank God there's no stripping of any threads of that sort. Here there's a lot of silicone paste that the previous mechanic has used, but I think other than that we're fine, we're good to go, we're safe. Okay, I'm just going to let the oil drain. I'm going to clean these out and then we'll go to the next step. Okay, so most of the oil has drained out. I think all of it is drained out. Just have a few drops here and there, which is absolutely fine. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to put some Teflon tape on these drain bolts. So I don't have a crush washer. I didn't buy one. But I think it's fine. I just put some Teflon tape on there and we're good to go. You don't have to put too much, just enough to cover the threads, and then you can, as you can see, I'm not putting too much, right? Just to cover the thread, and then you can screw it back in. So again, be careful guys. Older motorcycles would have their threads damaged, so be careful when you're threading it back in. As you can see, I'm using my hand to thread it back in, right? And then once it's fully in, I'm going to take my ring spanner, 19 mm, and then tighten it back up. And again, you don't have to go super tight, just hand tight. As you can see, that's good enough. So unlike the modern engines that have only one drain bolt, AVL and CI cast iron, they had three. This is how we had to change oil back in the early 2000s. Now it's far more simpler, far more easy, far less tedious. Okay, as you can see, I've put some Teflon tape on this one as well, right? Clean the surface and insert it. So what happens, since it has a huge filter, there's a tendency for the drain bolt to go in at different angles. So be careful. Make sure it aligns up well with the threads. Don't turn it any other way or that's it, you're screwed, right? So see, I can notice that it's getting a little tight here. So let me be a little careful. There you go. Again, hand tight, and then once you thread it up, you can tighten it with your wrench, spanner, or whatever. So always keep note that when you're tightening a bolt in and you feel a little resistance, it feels a little funny, stop. Don't tighten it more than that. Check if it's aligned properly and then you can tighten it. Okay, that's good to go. I don't want to tighten it more than that. So this one actually has a crush washer, but it's in pretty bad shape. I'm just going to reuse it. It's fine. I'll put some Teflon and we'll be good to go. So changing oil on an AVL is a fairly simple process if you have the right tools and you know what you're doing. If you don't, then it's better to go to a mechanic. I find working on my motorcycle to be therapeutic. It relieves me of stress, although it gives me stress sometimes as well when things don't go the way you plan them. I'm just cleaning the inside of the drain bolt, reinstalling the old crush washer. Ideally you shouldn't do that, but this is all I have, so that's what I'm doing. Again, Teflon on this and we'll be good to go. Make sure not to, put the Teflon on too tight again, and don't jumble it up. Make sure it's thin strips that you're putting on so that you don't wreck the threads when you're tightening it. If it's too tight and you over tighten it in the wrong angle, then your threads will get messed up. You'll have to go for a retread, which is a tedious process. Okay, just a little Teflon to keep it snug and tight. Clean the surface. Right. I don't know how good the angle is, guys. I'm doing this for the first time. I am not a professional, so please excuse if the angle is not that good. Keep your hand tight and then we tighten it up. As you can see, I'm not over tightening. Just check everything again once. Okay, and then we're good to go. Let me change the angle and then we'll work on the timing gear and push rods. Then we can close it up and refill. Okay, so what I should have done at the beginning of this exercise was soak the oil filter, but I'm going to do that now. The workshop manual says soak it for 15 minutes. Let's see how long I can soak it. So get your handy dandy oil soaking container. I'm using a Royal Enfield filter. Okay, so the filter itself comes with 2 O-rings, which you would ideally need to replace. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Oil filter in, and then just pour some oil so that it can soak. Okay, so since I have a decompression lever, I'm going to use that. Makes it easier for me. Okay, there we go. It's in timing now. So we have our exhaust lined up with cam lined up with the timing pinion. Okay, and our inlet cam is lined up with the exhaust cam. At this time, just check the free play of cams. They seem to be good. I usually adjust this one a little tighter than this one, and it seems to work out fine for me. The push rod, so this one is in spec, if you can make out. This one is slightly out of spec. I'm going to adjust that now. So to adjust the push rods on AVL, what you would need is ideally 3 spanners, but I'm using just 2. You need a 13 mm for the top, a 10 mm to break the nut loose. Okay, and then I kind of just use my finger and tighten it. Let's check if it's in spec. Almost. This one seems to be just right. I don't want to adjust that anymore. I mean, some of you may say it's a little loose, but it's fine. When you're revving the engine out, it doesn't cause any issues if the push rods are not that tight, or else you'll find that the pickup is a little sluggish. Again, I'm not too good with angles, so forgive me if my angles are not that great. Okay, I think this one's pretty good. So just let me show you that. So it just enough, right? It's spinning freely, but I think that's just right. I mean, ideally I would tighten it a little tighter, but I'm going on a ride soon, so I think that's just perfect. Just make sure it's tight enough. There we go. It's perfect. Another thing that you would need to do is to check the surface of your tappet valves. So let me just show you that. These are your tappet valves, right? And so you'll have to check if they have been, defaced. But I check them regularly, so I know that they're pretty good. So I don't have to do that now. But there you go. Those are your tappet valves, right? So yep. So your cam rotates on the tappet valve. It pushes the push rod up, and then on top, maybe another day I'll open the rocker covers up and I'll show you how the mechanism works. So yeah, I think these are good to go. Yep, we can close the timing case off, and we can go ahead with adding the oil into the engine section here. If possible, try to clean it up a little bit more. I mean, so I didn't have this discoloration inside my timing side before. When I used fully synthetic oil, I think those ones clean the engine out a little better. So that's how it goes. I'm not using a fully synthetic oil this time. I'm using a mineral oil, which is what the manufacturer recommends. So I think it's good to go. We'll see what's the next step. So part and parcel of being an Enfield owner is you need to be a problem solver as well. So this is what I was telling you in the beginning. So this spindle needs to be inside the timing case, and I think the mechanic was just lazy and decided, screw it, let me just fix it the way it is. So yeah, this has to be on the outside. Let me fix it into the timing case and I'll show you how that goes. So there's a little rubber o-ring. I'll show you where that goes once I'm fixing it into the timing case. There you go. That's one of the parts of the oil filter assembly. So at this point I'm just going to clean the timing case up a little bit just to remove the old oil. So the gasket seems to be pretty good. I'm going to reuse it. Also, I don't have one right now, so I have no other choice. I'm just cleaning it up. I'll show you the inside of the oil filter chamber. So inside here there is an o-ring which I'm going to remove and replace. Mostly mechanics don't do that, but they don't deteriorate as bad. But I think since I have it all opened, let me change it out. There we go. Let me change it out since I have a new one already. Okay, so here we go guys. New o-ring goes right in. Make sure it seats well at the bottom. I think that's fine. As you can see, I'm making quite a mess, but it's part of the process. There's nothing we can do about it. Okay, so the o-ring is in, right, and then we install our spindle. Spindle goes in. As you can see in the center there are some threads, so your spindle goes right in there. The other way, sorry. Tighten it up all the way in. So make sure not to damage the threads on this side when doing that. I think that's pretty good. Snug. It's not coming out from there. Okay, now what we do is we install the oil filter. I've soaked it for about 5 minutes, I guess. Most of the air bubbles are out. I'm just going to quickly install that in. Yep. Okay. Then we have this plate that goes on there. Okay, my bad guys. So before you place the cap on, you actually have to place the second o-ring. So this, put that in there, right, and then place the cap on top, which is the inner cap. And then you would place the small o-ring, tiny little guy. He goes on there. Right, as you can see, that's how it goes in. So a little bit of silicone paste from the previous application. Okay, there we go. Right, and then this goes on your spring, and after that you have to put your final cap on. So I should be replacing this, but since I don't have another one, the reason why I want to replace it is because there's a little bit of damage on there. The gasket seems fine, but I think I'm going to put a new gasket on. I have another gasket, so let me fix that and then we'll close everything up. Okay, so I've taken the old gasket off. I'm just going to put some Anabond silicone sealant. Just a little bit, guys, not too much, just to hold it in place. Just spread that around. As you can see, I've already cleaned it. So here's my new gasket that goes on there. Right, and then we can close it up. So this one requires a little bit of pressure. I'm going to do that off camera because I can't do that. Like, I need both my hands. So as you can see, I really need to press it down. So let me do that and then we'll continue. Got like 2 threads down and then just gently tighten it up. So see guys, ideally you would be doing this with it on the motorcycle itself. But since I have it off, I'm doing it this way, right? I'm just going to leave it at that and then I'll tighten it up when it's back on the motorcycle. So I'm putting the case back on. So always make sure that when you're putting your case back on, let me adjust the angle so that you can see this better. When you're putting your case back on, so there is a worm gear here. This needs to match with your, sorry, this is the worm gear and this is your oil pump. So these teeth have to match. If you put it on the incorrect way, and also final check if both your shims are on. So mechanics usually put 5 and 6 shims sometimes, right? But I learned this from Mech Auto Clinic, Chinmay bro. So 1 is enough. The shims don't control the noise of the cams. 1 on each side, right? And then you put your case back on and then you notice that it's not fixing. There's a little bit of a gap. It doesn't go beyond that. So what you have to do is you just have to gently, did you see what I did? So you just gently have to move the kick down. I'll do that again and I'll show you. So there you go. Or let me change the alignment so that, okay, right? So it's not fixing. Just use your kick lever, just gently just move it up and down, decompression, and then there you go. So it clicks in, and then from there you are good to go, my friend. Okay, so the Allen screws back on again, clean as much as possible so that the motorcycle is not dirty. So let me fix the screws back in and then we'll fill the oil. Okay guys, so I have all the screws in. Now there is a specific pattern that the company asks you to follow when you're tightening these. I don't follow that, but what I do is I always, so these are all just snug, right? So what I do is I just snug them up in diagonally, so I'm not putting too much pressure on just one bolt, if that makes sense. So as you can see, I'm going in opposites. Again, you don't have to be super tight with this, just hand tight and you will be good to go. If you over tighten, then you'll strip the threads, and again you'll have to go to the lathe and you'll have to get it fixed. As you can see, I'm not going super tight, I'm just being careful that I am hand tightening everything. Again, check all of them one more time. They don't move, they're good to go. You also don't need to put in any gasket sealant here. I've never done it in the last 18 years. Mechanics like to do it, but I don't. You don't have that much of an issue if you don't use gasket sealant. Okay, so remember, we have not tightened our oil filter bolt as yet, so let's do that now. Again, 13 mm. Don't be too tight, just snug. Start the vehicle up, and then if there's oil leak, you can tighten it just a little more. I think this should be good. We are good to go. Just clean it up a little more, wipe off all the excess old oil, dirty oil. Just like to use a screwdriver, flathead, so that I can get into all those nooks and crannies that are difficult to reach. Okay, so now what we do is we open the drain filler plug. The oil filler plug. The reason I'm using a cloth is so that I don't damage it. It is chrome, so be careful. Use a set of pliers and then you can open it up. Okay, so this is your dipstick. There's a level check on there. So since we have everything closed, let's start filling the oil in. Clean funnel, right? So this engine takes 2.25 liters. We'll first fill in 2, and then we will top it up based on the level on the dipstick. So there's a reason why I have the tappet cover open still. I'll tell you why in a minute. Okay, this is our first bottle. I'm just going to let that drain out. Fresh, clean oil. Okay, we're good to go. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to leave that open. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to put the motorcycle on the sides. And you'll be able to see why I'm doing that in a minute. So you remember we took some oil just to fresh oil just to soak the oil filter. I'm just going to put that here. Make sure you fill it slowly. So ideally you would want to have at least 200 to 250, 300 ml oil in the timing case, just to avoid any oil circulation issues. Again, be really slow. That should be fine. You can add the rest in here, just so that we don't have any vacuums. at this stage we can actually close the tappet cover up, just wiping clean the excess oil. Clean your gasket. Clean the tappet cover. Just clean it up from the excess oil, the old oil, right? So this is a cast iron tappet cover. Like I mentioned in the beginning, I've done some modifications on the bike, which is why I don't require a AVL tappet cover. So the AVL tappet cover actually comes with a valve lifter right there. We'll discuss that in another video. This is your nut. Tighten it up. Okay, for this you will need a 13 mm ring spanner. Again, hand tight, guys. Be careful, don't over tighten. That's good enough. Let me get the motorcycle back on the center stand and then we'll continue. Okay, now we add our second liter of oil. So like I said, 2.25. We'll add 2 and then the 250 ml we'll add it after we check the dipstick. Again, be careful when filling, don't spill oil everywhere. I'm using mineral oil after a very long time, guys. So I'm curious to see how the engine performs. I've been using Motul 7100 20 weight 50, but I thought let me check to see how the engine runs on manufacturer recommended oil. Doing it after a long time. There we go. We're good to go. We just need to idle the engine a little bit and then we can add the 250 ml. Okay, here we go, guys. Start up after oil fill. Let it idle for a while and then cut the engine off and then we can check the oil level. Okay, so the engine has idled for a while. Just check the dipstick and then we will know what the level is. So it should be between here and here, right? So let's just check that. I think it's pretty good. It's almost still there. Check it again one more time. I think it's in a good place. I mean, I may want to add another 100 ml, but let's see. So there you go guys, that's how we change the oil on an AVL in the engine section, right? In the next video we'll be looking at how to check the oil on the gearbox, and then in the next video we'll see how to change the oil in the clutch. Thanks for watching guys. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. If you like the video, if you like content like this, please consider subscribing. Thanks and take care. Bye.